All right. Thank you, Jeff. So as he said, today my topic is called Tacopirates, Art of Whoo. It's kind of a play on the whole art of war thing, and there's a story behind why I really wanted to do this presentation. Last year at one of the conferences, I kind of had an epiphany. The first thing was I went to a lot of talks where this technology will solve all of your problems in your security organization, or we as an industry are failing because of this. And I don't really believe all those things that they were saying. And to me, what I thought would solve everyone's problems is maybe communication. Just learning how to talk to people would be really, really good for the industry as a whole. The second thing was there was a guest at this conference who was socially awkward, to say the least. I knew him personally and knew that he had struggles finding a job. And when I first got there, he started asking me, what skills can I learn to get the job that you have? And he continued to ask me that question after I told him a multitude of different answers. Everything from learn your firewalls to any kind of networking stuff. And he didn't actually take that as an answer. And he actually didn't ask just me. He asked about 25 other people. So at the end of the day, on the second day, I asked him, I said, do you want me to be completely honest with you? And he said, yes. And I asked him again, I'm like, are you sure? And he said, yes. I was like, you really need to work on your soft skills. He had 0 people skills. And I must have been the first person in his life to tell him that, because there was that light bulb moment. And you see it in his face, and there's an awkward, pause. So the really cool thing was that he actually sat me down and was like, show me these things, or tell me about them. And we spent about an hour talking about them. And I spent the next day actually watching him apply the things that I told him, which was really, really, really cool. So the answer to both of these situations was communication. So today, it's the art of Whoo. I'm going to go over who I am and what my background and merits are that I think allow me, a security professional, to talk about communication. Another thing is the importance of communication. Conveying intent is a very important part of that. We're going to cover why Whoo. So I titled the art of Whoo, but what is Whoo and why do we care about it? And then I want to use those techniques to get a job. So how you can use communication to get a job, how you can use communication to share your ideas with your teammates, and specifically how to share to get funding, which is a huge hurdle for a lot of people. The last thing would be anticipating debate. A lot of people don't really do that very well. And then we'll review it all. So for me, again, my name is Benjamin Carroll. I'm a cybersecurity engineer. I am at tacopirate on Twitter and just about every social media platform. My education, I have a bachelor's in cyber defense, and I'm currently finishing my master's in technology studies. Through my master's, I've done a lot of studying on how technology is changing the way people communicate, which I'll get into later. So at my day job, again, ICS security engineer at Consumers Energy. In that position, I also dual as a liaison between cybersecurity and generation, so the SCADA system, with the sole purpose of building trust between the two organizations. I've also captained a lot of different cyber teams for a variety of different defense and offense exercises. I'm part of a lot of different meetups. MySec for one, so shout out to MySec. And I do really love thriving in any kind of social setting. One thing I really love to do is identify people who, those people that are in their shell. I love grabbing those people and bringing them into a conversation, which has helped a lot of people in the past, and they actually tell me that, which is I really do enjoy. And the last thing would be, my first passion was visual communication. I loved conveying emotions through images. And one thing you'll notice is I put a lot of time into this presentation to make it visually appealing, because I really do care about the aesthetic of anything that I'm doing. Because these slides, they're communicating the information just as much as my voice is right now. So, first thing we want to do is the importance of communication, which is the most essential skill in any workplace. So, as I said, I study how technology affects communication, and in the IT and the IS fields, technology is further disconnecting an already introverted industry. People spend hours behind a computer screen and forget how to interact with people face to face. And gone are the times of the lone computer guy sitting in a dark office. We don't see that anywhere anymore. Businesses need people who can collaborate with each other. So, and here's another cool thing I noticed here, and I'll actually talk to Tim DeBlock on this. People at these conferences do a really good job at communicating with each other. But what they don't do is take that same communication and energy back to their workplace. It's probably because we're comfortable here, so a lot of people, they're surrounded by the same people, so they get out of their shells, but it really is a problem. So that's what technology is doing, and if we look at the connection, every relationship is built on a mutual connection. Connection can be anything from the job you work at, your family blood. I have my brother in the audience. Your location, your favorite video games, or even the person you share affection with. Our connection with all of us here today is our conference that we're at. I present to teenagers a lot. I love going to middle schools and high schools to talk to teenagers and get them excited about information security. And I found the best way to connect to them is through video games. If you mention video games to a teenager, they are instantly engaged with you. So that's something I did a lot. I did a lot of recruiting at the college with high schoolers. There was one day I had to present to 600 11th and 12th graders in one day. And it was the day that Halo 5 came out. And I stayed up all night and I beat the campaign and then went to work. And I was hyped up on Monster and coffee. And I walked in the room, I was like, hey, who likes Halo? And half the room raises their hand. I'm like, yeah, I just beat Halo. Let's talk information security. And it worked. So, it was really cool. As far as connections go, with the video game stuff, I get a lot of Fortnite questions lately, and I don't play Fortnite, which really sucks. I need to work on that. Eye contact and touch are another way to really create some kind of connection, within reason. And usually, I mean, if someone has open body language, touch is okay. Just don't take it too far. As far as natural style way people communicate, everyone communicates differently. It can be body language, tone, posture, even the words that they use. But some people are just naturally better at it than others, and I hope this talk will actually teach you how to be a better one. And some techniques, again, that they use, eye contact and touch, but it's also in the way that they present themselves, what they wear, how they talk. And one way to look at this is, once I realized this, it really brought to light how a lot of group conversations work. Extroverts give energy to conversation. Introverts take energy from conversation. So finding that balance is really critical. You can't, if you're talking to an introvert, you can't be too excited because they're going to shut down, and it's vice versa. And the last thing is interbusiness. This is probably the most crucial aspect of our job, especially in security. Cybersecurity usually means that we are giving them more work, which leads to friction between our organizations. And a lot of people in tech can't accurately convey their intentions, which leads to a lot of miscommunication between the organizations. So having an open dialogue with other departments really drives the security program forward. And this can be done at both the leadership and an independent contributor level. It doesn't have to be just your managers talking to each other. For me, I have to manage communication line between security, IT generation, and the business. So it's possible. Next thing we want to do is look at why Whoo. Does anyone know what Whoo is at this moment? Yeah. I like this quote. He liked to like people, therefore people liked him. That's Mark Twain, which really captures the essence of what Whoo actually is. But first we need to talk about the Clifton StrengthsFinders test, which is where this comes from. The Clifton StrengthsFinders is a test that was developed to identify what people are naturally best at, and they're categorized into 4 main themes. I gotta get water. The first theme would be strategic thinking, which is how you absorb, think about, and analyze information in situations. Executing, which is how do you make things happen. Influencing is how you influence others, which is what Whoo falls under. And then the last one's relationship building, which is how you build and nurture strong relationships. So after the initial connection, how do you create or continue that relationship? And Whoo itself stands for winning others over. And a really cool thing is that everyone in our department has actually taken this test, and the results are posted on a wall that everyone can see. And the reason that we do this is if a technical person needs someone to present to management or something like that, they're not very good presenters, they can look at everyone else's skills and say, hey, you're good at talking to people. I'm way too much of an engineer brain. I can't do it. You know, go find them. And then for me, if I need something done really technical, it's nice to go find that person that can do that for me. The test can give you an entire range of scores, which is really great for finding your weaknesses. Initially, you get your top 5, but you can get all 34. And I really did enjoy taking it. And I've actually had other people in my life take it so we can understand how our personalities match. Kind of like doing like love languages and stuff like that. It also kind of solidified that I'm a people person first that just so happens to have technical skills, which I think is really cool. So I'll tell you my top 3 are strategic, woo, and then communication. And if that gives any hint to how I use strategy to communicate my ideas. So we're going to talk to woo. To me, there's an actual definition, but to me, I look at woo as how much people like you, especially when they first meet you. And how many security decisions these days are made dependent on whether or not someone likes you. A lot of them. And the best part about this woo is that it is a teachable skill. I was not like this 10 years ago. My father-in-law owned a limo business. And because of this, he spent a lot of time with CEOs of Fortune 500s, celebrities, your average person. And when you spend a lot of time in a car with someone, you really learn how to listen and talk to a variety of different people. And listening, I realized, was really a key to a lot of that. And he taught me how to actively listen to someone so I can engage with them more. So the first aspect of this is that initial connection that you create. You are never given a second chance for a first impression. According to the psychology research I found, it takes a person 1/10 of a second to determine whether they like you or not. And this is based usually solely on your facial appearance, whether we like it or not. It's kind of the way culture is. The way you dress and present yourself is also really important when you meet new people. I actually changed my clothes before I came up on this podium. I don't know if some of you saw me earlier in a t-shirt. The person and information I'm presenting right now is different than what I was representing out in the lobby. I swapped my black watch and shoes for brown and even put on a blue jacket, which is a color I wear often, and that's not by mistake. If you look at color theory, blue is a welcoming color and it encourages engagement. Have you guys noticed most social media sites are blue? Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, they're all blue for a reason. But then when I travel to, say, generation stations, I make sure to dress in a way that mirrors the people I'll be meeting. I will not wear something like this into, a gas compressor station. I was walking to system control. They'll look at me and they say, hey, he's corporate. Let's get rid of him. No, I wear jeans and a t-shirt. So in the business research I found, it roughly takes 7 seconds to determine whether someone or not likes you. And this means you have to have the right attitude, open body language. It's important at the first meeting. You want to find a way to create that initial connection. This can be anything from identifying a sports team someone likes. If they're wearing a hat that has a sports team, maybe you like that. We're in Detroit. There's a lot of Tigers, Lions fans here. Video games, your location. And if none of these work, it actually happens quite often where you can't find that initial connection, have a really good icebreaker. For me, I tell people I'm a triplet. And 9 times out of 10, that instantly gets someone engaged with me because I get one of 2 responses. I've never met a triplet before. What's that like? Or I knew a triplet once. They were so much like this. What was your experience? And I always get one of those 2 responses. Okay, so when you're making that initial connection, touch is another way to create that connection. It's also a really powerful one. And I'll have to add, it has to be welcome first. Don't just go touching everyone. Don't do that. And for me, what I do is I like to touch the shoulder of someone. And I would say it's important to do it on the side of someone's shoulder and not on the top. If you touch the top of someone's shoulder, it usually is kind of a sign of dominance. Don't do that. Just, hey, how are you? Touch them on the side. People behind Whoo are also more apt to having a large network of connections. They find it easy or even a challenge to meet new people. Before this conference, I knew there was 3 people I needed to meet. And I went out of my way to make sure that I met those 3 people and they knew exactly who I was. Not just, I'm Taco Pirate, but I am Benjamin Carroll. I work at Consumers. This is what I do. And in this way, in the future, if I never need to use that connection to help others or help myself, I can. Socially comfortable. Woo also means that you really like being the center of attention, unfortunately. My boss asked me the first day at Converge, some of you might have seen me. I was wearing a bright orange t-shirt, and he says, Ben, you are so bright, why are you wearing orange? And I told him I can't be the center of attention if people don't see me. And that was an honest response. Because again, it was the first day. I wanted people to know, hey, I'm here, and that was done on purpose. It not only allowed people to notice me, but it let them approach me before I had to approach them. And the last part is about building trust, which is my job. Every relationship is built on trust, and it's an active building block to creating and maintaining that relationship. And the quicker you build that trust, the deeper that relationship will be. I'll take a drink. So let's look at using communication to get a job. Because everyone needs to start with a job. So, we have a shortage of talent, but people still have a hard time getting jobs in information security. And a lot of that is due that the communication prior to their interview and even during it is horrible. So the first thing you want to start doing is something that you're all doing now, community involvement. And the fact that you're in this room right now is kind of a testament to your community involvement. You're mingling with new people, learning new concepts, and enjoying security with other people. We all have a passion for this. It's nice. And, okay, here's something. I made an active decision to get 0 certificates in college. And people kept asking me why. Why don't you want to get certificates? And yes, it's true that if you're applying for a job, certificates do put you ahead of a list of candidates. But to me, I personally believe that the right person knowing your name is worth more than any certificate you could get. And not just knowing your name, but knowing who you are. So here's a story. When I started college, I told my wife that I was going to work at Consumers Energy. I was born and raised in Jackson, and everyone knew that that was the right job to get if you wanted to stay in town. I had a family. I didn't really want to move. I wanted that. And on top of that, I also heard how fantastic the reputation was of the security team at Consumers, which many of you might have met through this conference. There's probably 20 of us here. So at the beginning of my junior year, I made sure to start getting involved in the community. I started attending MySec, met all the people, specifically their team. I volunteered at conferences, participated in cyber exercises, and near the end of my senior year, I heard that there was an intern opportunity to open up. And one night at MySec, I approached the director and started my elevator speech. Why I can be a good fit for you. You need to hire me. Which was really awesome because right in the middle of it, he stopped me and told me I'm in. And I was floored. I was like, I'm in? He was like, yeah. I was like, no way. He's like, no, really. And a week later, I was in the interview. And these were his exact words. You don't need to tell us anything. Everyone already knows you and what you're capable of. This is just a formality. So through the community involvement, I got to know everyone that he worked for, or everyone that worked under him, as well as him. And it was like an anonymous thing where it's like, yeah, he'll be a good fit. I didn't really have to sell myself because other people sold myself for me. Adding on to that would be your social presence. Again, the orange shirt is part of that. Making sure people know you're in the room, that kind of opens up opportunities. Twice these last 2 days, I was there and someone mentioned my name or a topic that I was doing, and they're like, we know Ben's here, let's go get Ben. So that's a good thing that when people know you're there. And what I also like to do is introduce myself to all the people at the beginning of a conference, a meeting, or whatever setting it is in. Or it could be a business meeting long-lost relatives for the first time. It doesn't matter. And the next aspect applies to all aspects of communication. And what that is to be authentic. Whoo is, I put a bit like social engineering. No, Whoo is social engineering. But no matter what, you have to continue to be yourself. Lying gets you nowhere. And Whoo isn't social manipulation. That breaks down relationships. It's being honest with yourself so other people can recognize that honesty. And the last thing I would add to trying to get a job is that don't let your past experiences define who you are at the moment. It's important to shine a light on accomplishments, but you need to be open and willing to try new things. That willingness translates really well when you're looking for a job, and especially during an interview. And don't let a job title doesn't mean much when your function, responsibilities, and duties can define your capabilities much better. So if you can define those to the people you're interviewing with, you'll be much better. Don't say, I'm a security engineer, I do this. Another thing with that, getting a job is a balancing act. And I included this slide to tell you the difference of when I learned what cockiness was and what confidence was. Not to say I'm still cocky from time to time. I'm sure Wolf just said something. Yeah. Yeah. when I was in college, I heard there was an opening for a work study position in the IT department, and I am an opportunist. So I decided I wanted to pursue it. So instead of following the regular process, I found out who the person was that was hiring. And I just walked into her office. I walked right in there and said, "You need me." And 20 minutes later, yes, I did walk out with a job. But looking back, that was probably the cockiest thing I've ever done. And it only worked given those specific circumstances. I have tried that since. It does not work. So now what I try to do is be completely confident in the things that I'm doing and the knowledge that I know. And true confidence actually does radiate with the people that are around you. And people really appreciate that. And especially when you're in an interview, the person interviewing you will absolutely recognize that. They will see right through cockiness. So don't do that. Next is sharing your ideas, which in security, again, is really, really hard to do for some people. And what's really bad is that ideas are what drive your organizations forward. If you don't have ideas, you're not doing really anything new. So the first thing when you're sharing ideas is to stay focused on one particular subject. We all tend to get excited and bombard each other with too much information, or here's this idea and that idea and this idea. Stay on the one idea, and the more concise you are, the more information will be received by the other person. The second thing to do is ask for feedback. Other people's feedback take your idea really to a next level. They always say 2 eyes are better than 1, and there could be something that you missed, and before you take it to a manager or the business or anyone, wouldn't it be nice if you had all your bases covered? Another thing you want to do is avoid digital communication for important topics if you can. I love to get up from my desk and walk to another person and ask them a question or share an idea. It does kind of distract me sometimes and takes time out of my day, but that interaction when we have it face to face is much more meaningful. And if you physically can't see a person, give them a call before you message them, or Skype or whatever, Slack, whatever you use. On calls, tone is communicated properly, which really helps them take in what you're saying. Luke and I work together, but we're in 2 separate buildings. How often do I call you?
A lot.
Yeah. And I am the IT person for his group. Or I'm sorry, I'm the security person for his IT group. So I really do like to call. And last thing would be to know the culture. And by this, it's very much know who to take your ideas to and who not to. Some people aren't very good at sharing ideas with you, so don't do it to them. And also who will give you the best feedback. Which is really cool about that Strength Finders test is that we can identify those people on the team that I'm on currently. I love taking ideas to Dan Ebbett. You guys probably met Dan Ebbett this weekend. He's great not only at giving awesome feedback on what is good, but he really challenges me on what I can make better. And usually when I have any idea, Dan's usually one of the first ones I go to at work. The next one is a roadblock for a lot of organizations. And this is to obtain funding. You know, this next technology will solve our problems, but if you can't get money to fund it, you're not going to get it. So the best way to solve this, I think, is to have a plan. The first thing you want to do is get straight to the point. And don't beat around the bush. You want to start a conversation strong and let them know what it is you're trying to accomplish. Secondly, you want to focus on outcomes. Management cares more about the impact their decision will have on the business than the methodology you will use to get there. You want to avoid talking about any kind of process and just make sure you highlight the outcome. You also need to make sure you have full knowledge of what it is you're presenting to or presenting on to management. They will push back hard on you, and you need to have the answers. And more importantly, you need to have the numbers. Which again, the numbers are what management speak. That's the language they use, so make sure you have those numbers. And lastly, if you're speaking to, say, a board of directors, talk to them like they are your parents. Where am I at? Upper management tends to be full business people with zero technology experience. And too often when we present to them to get funding, our presentation is overly technical and something that they don't do or even care about. It'll go right over their heads and your program won't go anywhere. So a similar case for me on that, as for terminology, is something I learned real quick. I said earlier that I work in ICS and specifically generation and SCADA systems. If I walked into one of those stations and said, look, I'm going to install a whitelisting application on your SCADA system, what do you think they'll tell me? Get out. Whitelisting is a bad word to use in these environments. So I learned real quick, don't use the word whitelisting, use the word application control. Term, application control. And when I used that, they're much more open to the topic, but then would ask me, what does that mean? And it's not just whitelisting. There's a lot that falls into an application control program. And the last thing I want to talk about is anticipating debate, which again is something not a whole lot of people do very well at. And as I mentioned earlier, communication falls apart in any kind of debate, but it doesn't have to be that way. You want to allow people to push back on you. And make sure you give them that opportunity to challenge your thoughts and expressions. And specifically welcome constructive criticism. I really do love receiving constructive criticism, but I also love giving it. But this is really the reason why I seek out Dan. And I believe it makes me more rounded with a broader depth of knowledge of what it is that I'm looking to accomplish. And another thing is prepare for the confrontation. It's literally everywhere in your life. And if you constantly tell yourself that someone is going to confront you and you're too scared to go along with it, you won't get anywhere. And if you're preparing yourself, you won't be in a situation of communication breakdown. And the last thing is really geared towards this new age that we live in. Actually any age. Your emotions need to be stable in any kind of communication. When you're passionate about something, it's easy to get carried away when communicating that passion. But you need to find a way to keep them under control. This will keep the conversation moving forward in a positive light. And if the other person is unable to do that, you need to remove yourself from the conversation. Which kind of leads me to my next topic, just to touch on real quick. A common theme in my recent studies is what defines technological progress. And social media is a great example of this. Who thinks social media is technological progress? You guys can raise your hand. Who thinks it isn't? All right, very good, because it isn't. Social media has connected the entire world, which at face value sounds like progress, right? However, it's also disconnected a massive amount of the population from reality. And this is mostly driven by highly tailored echo chambers that people use to surround themselves with like-minded individuals, and who do nothing but reinforce that person's opinion. And the way I look at it is, I know some friends from high school that are on Twitter, and they're always like, I think this sports player is the best player on the planet. And they're surrounding themselves with people that agree with that opinion. And they're all saying, yes, he is. And as soon as someone disagrees with that, chaos ensues. And it's the worst thing ever. And what I really don't like about this is, and the reason it's a problem is it's changing the way people perceive their own reality. So not just at our job, we're seeing debate and more open and really intense debate happening everywhere in our lives right now. It shows up in the workplace, with your family, in any kind of social setting. So just being aware of this massive step in learning how to constructively challenge people why did I write that? Never mind. Anyway, it's just one of those things where you just need to be aware that this is happening, and it is really being caused by the way social media is changing a lot of social norms, I should say. And then there's Twitter, which is its own beautiful mess. So what we did, we went over who I am, a little bit of information about me and why I think I qualify to give this presentation, the importance of communication, which is the most essential skill every individual needs to master, why Whoo, which is the golden key to strategic communication, and how we can use that to get a job, share your ideas, obtain funding, and especially anticipating debate. I think that's a hard one a lot of people are going to have. So that's me. You can find me at tacopirate on pretty much everything. There's my email, my website. Does anyone have any questions? Rock and roll, Luke. Good.